Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. And it's always nice when one of my friends comes on the show. And there is one right now. It is the author, the writer, the man about town. It is Martin Kleinman. Nice to see you, Marty.
Pleasure to be here, Gary.
Uh, Marty has a new book. Now, just to show you how long I've been a fan, I have the old book here, or one of the two old books. This is A Shoebox Full of Money, which we talked about the last time you were on. Now, when did
Right.
this come out? When did this come out?
That was 2021,
So in
and
3 years, you put together another book.
it's amazing. The older I get, the faster the production.
Is that true? Wait, the faster production or the faster you're writing?
Both. I mean, the thing is, and now that I'm not doing client work anymore, I have more time to devote to the writing of the short stories, so I can go full speed ahead. And it's what I've always wanted to do, and it would be a shame if I didn't take the time that I have now and waste it. So the production of the stories and the creative process is flourishing. It's fantastic.
So the new book, and Anderson will put up the cover of it, is When Paris Beckons. Is this the kind of thing where you come up with a title first, or and say, well, this is the concept, or really, because folks may not know, this is 17 short stories. They're like chocolates, you could kind of eat them and enjoy them. That's the way I approach them. But do you get a concept, or do you just write and then figure out the concept afterwards?
Well, actually, this was When Paris Beckons is the title of the lead story in the collection. And I just thought it was a compelling title. The stories themselves, all 17 of them, do not necessarily have something to do with France or Paris, but they all are connected in the sense that we're all going through the last 5 years or so, a complete disorientation that we really haven't seen in quite a while, perhaps since the Vietnam era. And so the characters in all of the 17 stories it's kind of like a Hitchcock story. These are like regular people in incredible circumstances that the people that are in the stories are way over their head, and how they deal with the disorientation, how they exhibit the bravery and stick-to-itiveness to get through incredibly difficult times. That's the commonality of the 17 stories.
Marty, that's fascinating, because what strikes me from what you say is unstated. The biggest personality in the room, the elephant in the room, is the pandemic, and the fact that the world changed after the pandemic, and then all the residuals after that we're all affected by, and those are the people, and the effects of those things are what you wrote about. Do I have that right from your
No,
explanation?
absolutely. I mean, you think about the impact on the economy. You think about the impact on politics, on day-to-day life. The medical problem that we faced was unparalleled, probably since the days of polio in the early 50s,
Right.
and before the Salk vaccine. And so people were criticizing, the response to the pandemic and the political aspects of it. But we were in over our heads. We had no idea how to deal with this, and we had to scramble. And the fact that we were able to get viable injections to stave off this incredibly serious disease in such a short period of time is nothing short of remarkable. And yet everybody's like, oh, we didn't do enough. We blah, blah, blah.
Well, listen, man, there's always more to do. One thing I've noticed is that when I live on an upper floor, like you see the buildings behind you.
Yeah.
When I used to look out at the street on a Saturday, even on a late afternoon on a weekday, you'd see a lot of people in the street. You'd see a lot of cars. If I go to my window right now, there's nobody out there. In other words, it's a very strange change of the way life is. Listen, I want to just get back. I told you beforehand that we were going to dig a shovel into your head and figure out what goes on. Do you wake up every morning and think of another story, or say, hey, I got to write? or do you have to? Are you one of those that has to sit down and say, "Okay, it's writing time, honey. I'm closing the door, and I have to write." How does this all come to you? 17 stories is a lot of work. It's a lot of stuff to be in here aside from the typing it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and it goes to, everybody, all the writers have a different process, and my process is, I have literally yellow legal pads. Here's one now.
Here they are.
Yellow legal pads, like filled with story ideas. So if I'm watching TV, if I'm just around the house, if I come up with an idea or just like a shard of an idea, I'll write it down, and then you see how it's almost like Legos. Like an idea clicks to another idea, clicks to a bigger idea, and the next thing you know, oh, that's a possible story. And so I write them down, and then I basically have almost like a production schedule.
A production schedule, like on your personal calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much of a control freak. Just ask my wife, and
I won't.
And the best way for me to complete a task is to literally write it down, make a list, and then just fill it in and go methodically.
Do you write one story at a time, or do you? Because I know for myself, and not that I've ever written any books, but stuff that I've written, sometimes like I say, that's it. I can't do any more, and I'll do something else, and maybe write something else, and then get back to it. Or do you sit down and say, no, in your very organized mind, I've got to write it from beginning to middle and end, and then go to number 2?
Yeah, I mean, that's another really good question. And the answer is I work on a story as hard as I can, as long as I can. And then invariably, I'm going to hit a wall on it. And when I hit a wall, the good news is I have a blog, and the blog is called therealnewyorkers.com.
Yes, you do. That's right.
And so when I hit a block, I'll switch over and write some blog posts. And that's kind of like my jumping jacks or my push-ups. It's like it gets my mental muscles loose again, and then I'll come back to the story.
Come back to the story right away, or the next day?
The next day.
You're only
I have
human.
a limited amount. I have about 4 hours of quality time a day, and then after that, it just disintegrates.
You and I were just talking about our commonality that we both went to DeWitt Clinton High School. Did you start writing in those days? Did you ever perceive
Earlier.
that? What's that?
Earlier than that. I mean,
Earlier than that.
I was PS 86, junior high school 143, DeWitt Clinton, Lehman College, right down the street, one after the other. And since I was a small child, my claim to fame was, writing. Math and science, not happening.
Not your thing.
Writing, essays, book reports, shorts. That was always a good facility for me, and I was able to get better and better. And the more you do it, it's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get, whether it's guitar, piano, whatever.
It's interesting. I have to insert my own experience since we talked about commonalities. My first gig, so to speak, I was the announcer for the dance festival in PS 95 in 6th grade. That was literally the first time they said, we should get one of the kids to announce the dances. And they were like, what about you? And that was the first time I held a microphone and did it. And so if somebody asked me, when did you really get started? There it was, PS 95 in 6th grade. Listen, so I want to ask you about a couple of stories. One is Summer in Sullivan County, New York. Which is one of the stories. Now, my wife lived up in Liberty, New York for several years, and then our family moved back to the Bronx, et cetera, et cetera. So I know a lot about that area. That is a fascinating story. Is that how true is that story? Did you make any of it up? I mean, I'd like to just get or did you go drive around in that area up on Route 17 in Monticello and, all that? Give me the reality versus what you wrote.
Most of the stories that I write start with a kernel of something that actually happened to me, or somebody said something to me. That particular one about Sullivan County is about 90% reportage. And most of them are not. this actually happened. My great uncle actually had a house like that with a wraparound porch. He actually had an old caddy with AC and leather seats. Nobody had AC and leather seats in those days in their cars, if they had cars. And the meeting of the old man in the middle of the woods with my cousins Dari and Betty, that actually happened, and it was pretty freaky. I mean, when you're a little kid and you're in the deep forest, even if you're really only a couple of 100 yards into the forest, when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, it seems like you're in the middle of the dense,
In the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Before we run out of time, I want to ask you about something else, which I'll tell you. The title of it is "The Rabbi's Story." And of
Mm,
course, in your mind, in my mind, of course, I assumed it was, like a man in a dark black coat, as Bob Dylan wrote, in a long black coat. But you start, and it's literally in the first sentence, it's a female rabbi, and
yeah.
it was just enlightening from the first moment. How much of that is true? The father is buried in Ridgewood, Queens.
Well, that one is about 90% Marty special sauce.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a female rabbi when I moved to this neighborhood from Brooklyn, but then it just goes into Marty land from there. That's my
Marty
special
Land.
sauce. Yeah, yeah.
Listen, I'm going to pull out one line, and then we're going to have to get running.
Okay.
Another old man who sags like a slinky. What a great metaphor that is. Tremendous, tremendous. So that was Marty waking up one morning, going, "Honey, I think I got it." Right?
Very, very much so. That one was pretty much out of the old noodle.
The noodle there. All right. So the book, and Anderson, if you want to throw up the cover again, When Paris Beckons, 17 new, wonderful, engaging, enlightening, on some levels urban, because he's an urban guy, stories. And Martin Kleinman, congratulations. I'm going to get the actual book. You sent me a preview, but I want the book so I can put it
Absolutely.
along with a shoebox full of
Absolutely.
money.
And if any of your viewers are interested in finding out
Yes.
more, it's www.martykleinman.com, and all the information on the book and how to get it is right up there.
Did you start writing the next one?
Absolutely.
I'm
It's
sure.
going to be a humdinger too.
All right. Listen, you are a humdinger. Thank you so much, Marty, for doing everything that you do, and for enlightening us with culture. We appreciate it.
No problem. Take care. Thanks so much for the support. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right, that will do it. We thank Ralph Ortega from City and State, New York. And I'm just going to go, and I'm going to tell you, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we will be here next week. Good night.